The reason I am here is because I work with harmful sexual behaviour. I specialise quite a bit in it, and I am trained in intervention, assessment, and supervision in AIM, which stands for assessment, intervention, and moving on, and that is a specialist assessment for harmful sexual behaviour. So I will go really quickly through these slides because I know we are going through. I'm going to look at sexualized behaviours and harmful sexual behaviour because Somerset respond differently to sexual abuse than they do to harmful sexual behaviour. So if I can give you some idea of how we respond and what that looks like and how our partners can get support and what that process is during the 3 minutes I have left. So sexualized behaviours, I think, is one of the many types of behaviours that children can and will display through their lives and as they develop. All adults and children explore themselves, their identity and body, and they respond differently as they grow older, and they've got different hormones and stimulators. And I think we need to, whilst, to ground ourselves, almost all sexual and sexualized behaviours are healthy, normal, typical, appropriate, and safe. So what isn't harmful sexualized behaviour? So in our responses in Somerset, so sexual abuse does not have the same response as harmful sexual behaviour does. So and you might wonder, it is harmful, however, there is a different response. So taken from the CSA Centre, intrafamilial sexual abuse is not classified as harmful sexual behaviour because it does not involve overt elements of victimisation or abuse. Child sexual exploitation, again, is responded to differently. It is not responded to in the same way as harmful sexual behaviour. Appropriate developmental behaviours obviously aren't harmful, and most problematic behaviours are not harmful either, but we'll look at that in a second. Some behaviours can be problematic, and that needs to be looked at to see what the motivations, intentions, and impact it has on themselves and on those that the behaviour is against. So what is harmful sexual behaviour? Well, most of the traffic light tools and the tools that we use to assess that are based on Hackett. So harmful sexual behaviour is developmentally inappropriate sexual behaviour displayed by children and young people which is harmful or abusive. So they can typically display a range of sexualized behaviours as they grow up, and some behaviours may be deemed developmentally appropriate. However, some display problematic or abusive behaviours, and this is harmful to the children who display it as well as the people it's directed towards. And that was taken from the NSPCC website. Hackett's continuum presents sexualized behaviour as a range from normal to inappropriate, problematic, abusive, and violence. And there's no official agreed ways of describing sexualized behaviours, which causes concern. So what is harmful sexual behaviour? All behaviours must be considered in a holistic context and looked at in respect of their understanding, their age, their stage of development, the risk and safety to selves and others, motivations and drivers, and the impact on harm. And when working with it, it's imperative that if it is deemed to be harmful, that a robust safety plan needs to be put in place while all the other processes and things are going on sort of alongside that. So again, from the NSPCC, how do we respond? What is harmful sexual behaviour? This is taken from Hackett's continuum again. So we are looking at normal, developmentally typical, problematic, which is inappropriate and problematic. Again, in that problematic, bit, let's have a look at those motivations and that intent. And then we go on to harmful, which is abusive or verbal. Oh, violent, sorry. So how do we as professionals, whatever context we are, take the subjectivity and maybe our own bias out of judging those behaviours? And there are some fantastic tools out there which we need to use to show that graduated response. Brook traffic light tool, excellent tool. I know a lot of people have been trained in that, and you can continue to use it if you have. You can still access that training on Brook if you haven't, but there is a cost attached. Lucy Faithfull Foundation has also some really good tools to judge where that behaviour lies. On SSCP website, you will find the Somerset Harmful Sexual Behaviour Protocol, which will take you through the steps that are needed if those behaviours are noticed. And I think it's very easy for us to put our blinkers on and not see them, because it can be a very difficult area for a lot of people, and for the young people, children and families involved. But it's something that we need to remove those blinkers, and we need to pay attention to it, because otherwise they could continue. So how do we respond? We have got a duty to respond. We look at the threshold documents, the effective support documents, that again can be found on the SSCP website, and there is a section for harmful sexual behaviours. If it is deemed as complex or acute, then a referral through an early help assessment will need to be made to the family front door, and that will be triaged, and it will be directed to the appropriate service for what has been identified. For partners, there is a new RHSB referral process. So again, it's that graduated response. It's those Brook traffic light tools, Lucy Faithfull tools, and we need to consider those behaviours in a holistic context. And we need to recognise that actually that behaviour hasn't come from nowhere, and that holistic family assessment needs to be done to hold that risk and deem where it's coming from, rather than just deal with the sexualized behaviours that have been identified. If the family front door do not feel it reaches that complex or acute level, it will be stepped down, but there will be a plan in place for that. Internally, there is now no RHSB panel. So again, we still need to follow those same processes, and it may need a targeted safeguarding response, and an AIM 3 assessment may need to be considered. So that will be decided on by the assessment, discussions with the supervisor, going to the appropriate managers, and if it is deemed that is what is needed, then a resource, as in myself, will be identified, and we will complete that work, leading on to necessary interventions depending on the drivers and the needs that are being met by those behaviours. And that work will be supervised outside of the normal supervision process through specially trained supervisors. There are so many resources to support those within Somerset, and also our partners in schools and in different settings. There are some, I have put a lot of resources on the different slides at the end, which will be sent out to you. Most of them will signpost you to the fantastic guests that are coming on this week. But I think, so hang on, there we go. There's the AIM project. There's prevention, the NICE guidelines. Oh, I'm going, I think I went a bit too fast there. So very whistle stop tour, but it was mainly to show that we respond differently. Whilst we recognise that intrafamilial sexual abuse is harmful, it has a different response if it is HSB outside of that context.